you okay?
Hello, hello. Welcome to the night crew. Glad you're tuning in tonight. We have a great crew lined up. We have Lamar Callahan back with us, Kentucky guy, Tim Wardell, and Angel. So glad to have all y'all here. Let me turn my phone down. I know better than that. Okay. Okay. Well, I hope everybody's had a great day today. We got a great bunch of topics lined up, and let's go ahead and get into it and see what happens. Okay, the first topic on the agenda, UT Health San Antonio and UTSA working new concept into curriculum. The University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio, UT Health San Antonio, and University of Texas at San Antonio are launching the first known program in the U.S. to combine medicine and artificial intelligence. A Doctor of Medicine from UT Health San Antonio and a Master of Science in Artificial Intelligence from UTSA will form a 5-year MD/MS program enabling physicians trained in San Antonio to advance the use of AI to improve diagnostic and treatment outcomes. Given the synergy between the two fields, it's no wonder we're seeing this type of degree as one of the first movers. Already, AI is improving patient treatments, surgeries, and diagnostics. It's even streamlining admin tasks. So, last week we talked a little bit about AI. Everybody seemed to be a little bit clear of it. Putting this new element into it and getting it involved in medicine. What do you think? Would it scare you to be diagnosed by artificial intelligence? Who wants to jump on that one? Go ahead, Lamar. You look like you're ready to go.
No, I was just thinking about military intelligence.
Yeah, contradiction in terms.
Not very intelligent.
Yeah.
But I hope it works. I really do hope it works. It takes them 5 years to figure this out. They've been using, AI in some semblance. So I wonder how far they go and where the science will take them. But I'm also concerned how far they go, because at what point do they stop and say, where do they stop and say, I'm not God? And one thing that's concerning to me is where do they draw the line? At what point? And so that's where I'm concerned with, is how far they go and at what level does intelligence take over and man stops. That's my concern.
Yeah. I have used AI apps for a while on different things. And I can tell you that it is very good. It's a very handy tool, but sometimes, not too often, but sometimes it gives inaccurate information. And that's the part that gets scary. So especially if they're doing diagnostics with it, or telling you what your prescription should be or whatever, there's a lot of room for error there. So that's the part that concerns me.
Yeah, yeah. And like Lamar said, we've been using AI for a long time in different capacities in the medical and science fields. And some of it's been proven to be good. But again, like, where do they stop? And to diagnose somebody and to have treatment outcome, it's scary to me. Maybe it's scary because I'm a little ignorant to it. I lack a lot of knowledge in that area, maybe in the scientific field. But yeah, somebody with a beating heart, I would like to be the one to have my treatment outcomes. And I really like the way they're wording it here. It's even streamlining admin tasks. I like streamlining, another word for taking away another person's position, right? But
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. Where does it stop? When does it stop? But we have had AI for a long time, robotics in the medical field. We've had it for a long time. But where does it stop? That's a good question, Lamar.
Okay. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Kentucky guy.
Okay, so I am a believer in AI when it comes to using the programs to help you on your website. Using the programs, I've used it. I just put out a book, and it was a lot of help in doing that, the editing part. However, when you talk about performing medical practices on an actual human being, that's pretty much where I draw the line. I know that if it was myself or my daughter or my father or something like that, yeah, I'd want a human person interacting with them. That way I know and everybody makes mistakes. We understand that. But, and I'm kind of like you, Steve, I've used AI quite a bit, and I've seen the great side, and I've also seen the bad side as well. I seen it take down my laptop for 3 days one time. So we're not there just yet. And I definitely don't think we're there when it comes to treating other humans. So, yeah, so I'm a big negative on that.
I was reading an article and it said it's too early to say whether this program is a good idea or not. However, it is a pioneering effort. And that makes me nervous because it's on human beings, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose looking at it another way, every medicine or every procedure that's done had to be used on some human for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that has to happen at some point.
Would we be
me?
Would we be more lenient? Like, everybody makes mistakes, things happen. We don't want it to happen in these capacities, but would we be more lenient if a human doctor made an error on us or an AI?
Yeah.
Right? Which one would we be more lenient with? I don't know. Probably a human.
Yeah, and you wouldn't do any good to get angry at an AI, you screwed up. How dare you, I'm going to sue you.
Well, the organization, the medical organization that allowed it to happen would be the ones, but
there's going to have to be a whole new set of laws that are made.
Yeah, I think so too.
That sounds like a mess, but then again, these lawyers don't get enough money. We got to support them, right? Angel.
I think I'm in the same along with everybody else. I'm kind of unsure about it. I mean, we already have, just errors that happen just as humans. So you add AI into it, and I think that's a recipe for disaster if something was to go wrong. Definitely an increase in lawsuits, potentially. I don't. I think like everybody else, even if it was my family, I don't think I'd want to use that method. I mean, you think academically, a lot of schools, they're catching that everybody's using this artificial intelligence to write papers and do all kind of stuff. And they're already, saying this is not acceptable. You cannot do this, so would you really want that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Performing a surgery on you? I don't.
No.
So.
Yeah, what's next? We're gonna get diagnosed over TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Uh-uh.
Anything else on that topic? All right, let's see what's next on the agenda. Why most Americans want Donald Trump to face criminal charges for the Capitol riot. If that sort of heinous criminality by President were to go unanswered, it would set a very dangerous precedent, for they were untouchable, completely above the law, and have zero reason not to do the same or worse to stay in power. The thing that never happened in 200 plus years, attempting a coup to stop the peaceful transfer of power, would become the new normal, the floor for what could happen until they push it even further. Every 4 years, the future of our continued existence as a democratic republic living under a constitution will be put in question. Nothing can be counted on. To allow such a thing to go unanswered with no accountability is to invite further lawlessness by politicians and mark the beginning of the end of our nation as we know it. If a president can do what he did with impunity, where will it end? Did you know he wanted the military to seize voting machines to stop the counting? And did you know he wanted to redo the election to get the outcome he preferred? And you know, I agree with this article. I mean, if we just let the things that happened on January the 6th, 2021, if we just let it slide, then what would prevent a future president from doing the same thing? You know, if something doesn't happen to dissuade the next person to do it, then, you know, it's an invitation for trouble as far as I'm concerned. Just like if a parent lets one kid get away with something, and guess what? The other ones are going to act out too, you know? I mean, that's just human nature. If somebody gets away with something, somebody else is going to try it too. So that's my 2 cents on it. What do y'all think? Kentucky guy, I know you want to jump in there. Go ahead, brother.
So there's one part, Steve, that I do agree with you on, and somebody does need to be held accountable. That's absolutely true. The only thing I can't get out of my mind is let's walk peacefully and patriotically down to ensure they do their constitutional duty, is what President Trump said, his last words in his speech. We've had this fake January 6th committee try to rearrange things and prosecute this president over this. And I'll be honest with you, do not misunderstand what I'm saying. January 6th should have never happened. It's horrible. It's a sad day in our history. It's going to forever be a black mark on America. However, we need to do research, our own research. We need to dig down deep and see what actually happened that day. I won't get into it all, but I actually wrote a book about this. So there's a lot of things that haven't been shared with the American people, but it's out there if you want to look for it. There is, if you go back 3 weeks before January 6th, Antifa was re-registered by our government as a terrorist group. They were involved in January 6th. Do your own research. Also, the people in charge, Nancy Pelosi and the Capitol Police captain, were offered and the mayor of Washington were offered so many thousands of National Guards to be displayed because the crowd was going to be big on January 6th. This was offered by President Trump and refused on 3 separate occasions. And that was his job to do that. He had to offer that, and he did. So I don't know where you got this article from. The polls that I read are quite a bit different than that. Actually, every time they go after him or try to indict him, his numbers actually go up because it's all political. It's everybody. They do not want this guy to run in 2024. They're doing everything they can. But you are right. I do agree that somebody needs to be held accountable for January 6th. There were deaths on that day. There was 1 death on that day, Ashley Babbitt. If you go look, the other guys, they didn't die on that day. It was afterwards. And they weren't even injured. It was suicidal, but nobody ever got hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. So many lies. It's just crazy. But yeah, there's my 3 cents, Steve.
All right, thanks. Kim?
Okay. So I think we're on the same page in a lot here. And I'm not saying I'm a Trump fan at all. I'm not saying I'm not a Trump fan. As a woman, I think he's a misogynistic, egotistical jerk. But I do also, there's many parts of him that I agree with. And I am not an American, and you probably get a lot more stuff than I would get here. But I do agree. This article, I think it's a bit biased. And not on you, Steve. I'm whoever wrote it, I think.
I should have said it's an opinion piece. That's not an article. That is
Yeah, it is an opinion piece. And, did you know he wanted to redo the election to get the outcome he preferred? No, he wanted to redo the election in the sense redo. It wasn't even a redo election because a lot of the stuff that he said did come out as factual. Okay, people from all ends of the earth we're trying to stop this man from coming into power. And I was reading an article that said half of Americans want Trump to face charges. And just that right there makes you just close that article because it's not reputable. Anybody that says half of Americans, we all know how these polls work. We've all heard of the red hair. Well, maybe we haven't, the red hair poll effect. Not half of Americans want him. That is just not true. Trump, there's been so many lies about him. And somebody needs to be held accountable. You're absolutely right. Let's not forget all of these people. They have a mind of their own. Where does the accountability come in for the people in this protest who decided to be violent? Where does accountability come in? Every man, woman has a mind of their own, right? So then if somebody needs to be accountable for this, then almost every single president and prime minister of our country too, right now, needs to be accountable. Clinton's, both of them corrupt human beings. Biden right now is probably one of the most, I am sorry if any of you are a Biden fan. My opinion is he's a puppet and he's just evil. So this opinion article, I just don't think it's reputable. I think there's a lot of lies, what's happening, a lot of truth, but a lot of lies as well. I mean, Trump is Trump. He's just, everybody knows, they look at him and they just laugh. So I don't know. From there, this article though, I just think it's a bit biased.
Yeah. So how is Trump and Biden thought of in Canada, Kim?
With Trump, it's kind of a mixture of Trump fans, a lot of Trump fans, and a lot of, you either hate him or love him. I don't know if the Americans are the same. There's not a lot of in between for Trump. Like a lot of presidents, there's, whatever. Biden, for the most part, in my knowledge, there's not very many Canadians from west to east that they all just think he should just he just needs to sit down and stay out of politics, but he won't. He's not liked. He's not liked here. And I'm not just saying that because I don't like him. He's just not. But Trump, you either love him or you hate him.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I don't know anybody that's in between on that subject.
Yeah.
Angel?
Angel is here, but Angel is not going to comment here because I have very strong feelings, and
That's okay.
being a person of color, I see things that others don't see when I see Trump. So therefore, my
Yeah.
comments, I'm gonna keep them because I've noticed the climate change. I've seen, when everybody was getting rowdy and the things in the comments that were made. I saw it for myself living down here in Alabama. It's just it was a little insane, and so I'm gonna leave it there. I don't think I should comment. I don't think I should comment on this.
Okay. Alabama is a red state too, right?
Come on, Angel. Come on, I'll back you up. I'm in a red state too.
Alabama a red state?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. It's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Lamar.
It's culturally different. I think just the opinion of the climate of the things that change. Other
Well,
races may not see what I've seen myself. There are some that have of other races, but I just what I felt and saw with my own eyes. And it's not even because, just I grew up in a mixed household. So that has nothing to do with it. I'm not this diehard, got to be a certain way about my culture type of thing. For everybody, but I just felt it. I felt it and I seen it, especially when he lost. Doors slammed in my face. It was just culturally, it was different, a whole atmosphere. And I felt it and I seen it. But I just know that if that day had happened any differently, if those were people of color in a mass amount, we would not be even negotiating who to blame at this point. It would have been a bloodshed. There would have been a lot of people that would have died that day. I don't care what anybody says or, what anybody's thoughts on that are. I know for a fact if it had been any other way, especially like with the Black Lives Matter movement and all the other stuff that was going on at that time, if we had just risen up and all went and stormed that Capitol, it would not have gone the way that it went. And that's just not just being Black, but being any race other than, it would have been bad that day for sure. There was a whole lot of people that were plotting into that. This wasn't just a fluke. We have politicians down here that were involved, and they were saying that they were informed, that they were all huge Trump supporters, that went and did this whole thing. And our governor was even like, I know what happened. I know what they did. And they went and supported getting all these people to the Capitol. But I'm staying out of it, for the sake of the politics. But it was very clear what was going on that day.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I I'm sorry, I just want to interject for a second, Angel. And I just want to say, I think you're right. I can't pretend and I won't pretend that I understand. But I think you're right. I think if people with different cultures, different skin color, if it had been reversed, I think you're absolutely right. And it's not right. It's not fair. And I don't even want to use the word fair because that just seems to minimize it. But I think you're right. And please, I'm not trying to be, I get very emotional sometimes. I'm sorry. That's all I can say because I know you're right.
Yeah.
And you have to speak up, even though you're like, oh, I have a strong opinion. We need your opinion as well because your opinion matters. Your word matters. And you see things differently and probably more in color than most people, if I can use that word. And so you do need to speak up.
And you're welcome to speak up about anything at any time, Angel.
I know. It's just a strong opinion. So I'm just, I get a little quiet, but I think that, like I said, that day would have gone different.
Yeah.
And there would have been a lot of people that would not be just given slaps on the hands for doing that. it would have been, some massive jail time for sure.
And more killing.
Hmm.
Lamar. Lamar.
I think he's freezing a little
Well, I agree with what a lot of people are saying. As far as the article, I wouldn't say that it's biased. I think they're stating some obvious points that, which is very clear. If this is not taken seriously, then this could happen again and continue to happen. I think one thing that's very maybe ominous is just how corrupt the GOP is. And I'm speaking of what just happened in Texas with their attorney general. The guy is, corrupt, bribery, just one instance for 15 years. And this has been going on. He's really hurt a lot of people. And the Republicans acquit the guy. He's sleeping with the staff and everybody knows it. They bring him up on charges and then they turn around and let the guy go. And so now you have the Republicans at the federal level. They're all saying behind closed doors, we hate the Antichrist, this orange idiot. But then in front of the cameras, either we're not going to say anything, we're not going to chastise him, we're just going to say, well, I didn't see it, I didn't know. Where's the elevator? But I think the only one that had any cojones is Senator Mitt Romney, who said, I quit. I'm going to retire from the Senate. The Republican Party doesn't support the Constitution anymore. They're a bunch of fake and liars. And fake is the word, not something else. I wasn't trying to drop the F-bomb. But what I'm concerned about is someone who is going to be in the jury is going to take the position of, I like this guy and I don't care what anybody says. He's my guy. And it's going to be a hung jury. No matter what the facts are, no matter how many times they see the recordings, no matter how many times you run the tapes, there's going to be that one person who says, I just don't give a blank. I'm not going to convict him. And that becomes the impetus for him not going to jail. But that's our system. And it's been proven that he's a rapist several times. And I'm not just talking about the 13-year-old that he raped, but the recent one, the lady, the reporter. There's 91 indictments regarding this guy. And he thinks that, my manure doesn't smell. It does smell. And he needs to be held accountable. But I'm concerned that there's going to be somebody who simply says, I'm not ready to convict him. And that's going to set a very huge precedent that they're going to let him off. And it's the very same reason why the GOP would not convict him when he was commander in chief.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
We could probably go on for an hour on just this subject, right?
Probably time to move on.
Yeah,
I could.
me too. And I'm not even American.
Okay, let's go to the next topic.
Yeah. The next one's not a heated one.
Council bans display of pride flags. Now, this is in Hamtramck, Michigan. I've never heard of that city. This city of 28,000 was once so Polish and was dubbed Little Warsaw. But in recent decades, an influx of immigrants gave Hamtramck new character. Bengali and Arabic joined English on signs at City Hall. Yemeni and Bangladeshi mosques, restaurants, and shops proliferated. And last year, a Muslim who immigrated from Yemen as a teenager became mayor. The city's first leader in nearly a century with no Polish roots, alongside what is believed to be the nation's only all-Muslim city council. Many residents in this tiny enclave just north of downtown Detroit saw these changes as a sign of Hamtramck's progressiveness. The Muslim community that had previously experienced discrimination, including voter intimidation and resistance to mosque public call to prayer, had finally taken its seats at the table. Yet the ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity that made Hamtramck something of a model is being put severely to the test. In June, after a divisive debate, the 6-member council blocked the display of pride flags on city property, action that has angered allies and members of the LGBTQ community who feel that the support they provided the immigrant groups has been reciprocated with betrayal. So it looks like they went a long ways to try to be inclusive and bring people that are different into the mix. And they have done pretty well with that over the years, it seems. But now, when it comes down to the pride flags being flown, some people are saying this is different, and this is going too far, and we shouldn't do this. So I can actually see both points here. You know, it's kind of a different thing, but then again, it's not, if that makes any sense. So what do y'all think about that? Who wants to jump on that one? Angel, you want to go first?
Why me? Okay. So, I mean, I don't have any problems with the flag being displayed, or but I don't see why I can't. But at the same time, the city does have that discretion to display it or not display it. I don't know.
Well, if I could say something,
Okay.
You guys know I have a lot of opinions. You see, if you're flying the pride flag, if you want to put it up at your house, if you want to put a pride flag at, in my opinion, I've just had enough. I've had enough of these pride flags. We cannot put up, what about, will you go to City Hall, in every city hall, in every single town of every state or every province, and will you see a Christian flag? Will you see a Black Lives Matter flag? Will you see an orange flag representing the Indigenous community? No, you won't. You might see it here and there for maybe a week, but they're trying to get attention and make a point of something, but that's it. That's all you'll see it for the rest of the year. Like February, you might get a Black Lives Matter flag. You might not. Okay. This is everywhere, almost on the entire planet now. I'm not saying it's not about LGBTQ 2 squared 3, whatever numbers and letters are now there. It's not even about that per se. It's about a specific group of people having precedence over every other group of human beings on the planet right now. You cannot go down a sidewalk in a downtown area and it's pride. You can't go by a school and they've painted pride flags on the school. Churches are waving pride flag. Community halls are you can't do a bloody thing in life anymore. And if you don't agree with them, then you're homophobic and you're this and you're that and you're a hater. And I've had enough of it. We can't even speak the name of Jesus in school right now, but they're teaching our kids that if they want to be male, they want to be female. This subject here, you can guarantee you're going to get some emotion out of me because I've had enough of this. It's a city and the council has a right, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim. Muslims are the only people standing up in the world right now that enough is enough. It's the city council, and if they decide that the pride flag doesn't need to be waved at their city hall, then they should be able to say that without being whether they're Muslim or not, whether they're Republican or Democratic, or it doesn't matter. There you go.
There you go. Hey, I agree with you on all that. And you talk about pride, you talk about scripture, how much does the Bible condemn pride,
Well, yeah. We can't put scripture up on a wall at City Hall.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anybody to have scripture written on a wall, but yet they're taking it all down. It doesn't hurt anybody. Read it or don't read it. Believe it or don't believe it. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But let's put up all the flags. They stole my rainbow. I'm taking my rainbow back.
So somebody starts flying a humble flag, it's humility.
But you do see it, and I'm a supporter of all because I have family, including my son that is.
Me too.
But at the same time, I do agree on that aspect of it's almost like it's forced.
Yep.
A little bit. I always wanted my son or my children to make their decision on whatever they decide to do in life on their own and not be forced by media and things of that nature to make that decision. I wanted them to make that decision just, on their own. And it does seem even with the Black Lives Matter, a lot of people don't even feel like that's forced. They feel like more of it being like a racial thing. So I don't understand how this one here, even I know it's not a race, but it is a group, just like any race, and it is pushed. The media, it's almost as big as what's the one with the animals? Like if anything is said publicly in entertainment, with celebrities, anything going against animals or whatever,
PETA.
and then what is it? PETA. Yeah, there we go. They'll come out, and be very, and if it's anything with this is very strong, you'll almost be cast out as a celebrity if you say you can make a racial joke, you can make any other type of joke, but that's off limits and animals off limits. Those are the two highest that you'll pretty much get condemned for before you would something racial or
Yeah. And I don't want to take all the screen time. I want to let you guys talk. I just want to, Angel wasn't here last week. We did mention as well, it's not about an individual and their choice. Okay.
right.
Like, I think some of us, we talked last week, we have family members. Okay. And we love greatly. We would do anything for, and there's no shun. There's no anything. It's not about that. In my opinion, the flag is no more about that anymore. Because if I'm a Christian and I can't celebrate it, but if that's what you're going to do, I'm still going to love you. If that's who you choose, and I'm still going to love you.
Right.
And I'll love your son just like I love my sister and my uncle, right? But
Right.
it's too much now. It's just too much.
Yeah. Lamar?
I'm going to take try to take a political position here. I want to say that the city council is being somewhat disingenuous, simply because the U.S. is to be a melting pot, and you should be able to fly any flag you want to be within reason. You're not supposed to fly the KKK flag and certain other flags. Yet and still, I do agree that there are flags that have personal meanings, or a meaning to the person, that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be flown at City Hall. And there are agendas that Hollywood pushes on people that doesn't necessarily need to be forced through the courts or through the government or at City Hall. Personally, if you want to take on that lifestyle, I simply say that's you. That's how you want to live your life. Fine. Okay, that's you. But don't force me to have to accept it. I'll simply say that's how you want to live. That's how you want to live. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Good political answer.
That's all I got to say about it.
Anything else on that one?
Okay, guy.
Well, I don't want to take a religious. I don't want to take a religious standpoint. I don't want to take a religious stance, and I have a nonprofit that has to be be apolitical. So
I mean, as a parent,
I'll
it was
just
a
keep it that way.
It was a hard pill for me to swallow as well, because it's different, right? It's not something that you are accustomed to, but I had to think about it and process. I'm from the forensic background, so I have done so many autopsies of kids whose parents just couldn't be supportive, and they just were suicidal and ended up killing themselves. And so that mentality is engraved into my head, and that's the last thing I wanted for my son. Regardless of where I stood religiously, I had to take a step back and be like, this is my child. And I had to, I might have my different thoughts on it or way of thinking, but I just could not let that be my child. And he thought, if my mom doesn't accept it, this is the only way out. And that, I couldn't live with myself if that happened. So, but I do get,
Right.
what everybody is saying, because I am that person. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Anything else on that?
Yeah, let me. I wasn't going to, but I guess I'll go ahead and weigh in real quick on this.
Go ahead.
So, this is it's kind of a touchy subject for me. We talk about flags and things of that nature, but let's talk about the color of the flag. on this pride flag stuff. And I'm just like the young lady, I'm very aggravated over this. The colors on that flag was a promise from God to Noah, the rainbow, that he'd no longer destroy this earth with water. How sick is it that they took those colors for something like this? And I'm sorry, you asked, did anybody have an opinion? They took those colors and what it represents for something like this, something that's plainly stated in the Bible that it's abomination. Sorry, I'm not for this whatsoever. I think this city has a right to finally stand up. I don't know why they had to mention that they were Muslims or immigrants or anything of that nature, because they are human beings and they're Americans. So why mention any of that stuff about their race? Doesn't matter. They stood up, and I think it'd be unpatriotic to put those up and force them down the throats of innocent people that just don't want anything to do with it. I have it in my family. I love them. Right, do anything for them that I can, but don't force it on me.
Yeah.
Do not force it on me, and do not force it on my kids. That's all I've got to say on that, Steve.
All right. I'm with you on that, stealing the rainbow, you know, I mean, that's always been a big thing for me as a Christian too. It's like they hijacked the rainbow, and I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay, what's next on the agenda? Biden administration released $6 billion of frozen assets to Iran. On the 22nd anniversary of the worst terror attacks in America's history, the Biden administration notified Congress that it had just released $6 billion of frozen assets to Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terror, and would release 5 Iranians detained in the U.S. in exchange for 5 American hostages. We should all be happy for the families of these 5 Americans and be thankful that they are finally receiving good news about their loved ones. As Secretary of State, nothing was more rewarding than bringing home Americans held hostage in foreign countries. While our goal should always be to bring every American home, we must also negotiate to ensure we don't incentivize the taking of hostages in the future. This is the worst deal ever. Paying for Americans wrongly detained by Iran will only make Americans less safe in the long run and provides more funding for the brutal Iranian regime. These were lessons we learned long ago, but that Joe Biden refuses to learn. Now, on one hand, I think it's good to get the Americans home. No matter what we have to do, just like, for example, if one of our family members was held hostage, we would do anything at all we could to get them out, and get them back. And then say we'll deal with the perpetrators later. Maybe that's what we're doing here. I don't know. But it's kind of one of them deals where you got to give and take, and you got to decide what you want. Are the human lives of the Americans more important than setting a precedent, or is it more important to set a precedent than get the Americans back? I mean, it's a trade-off, no matter how you look at it. So I can see anybody's point of view on that one, I guess. So what do you think, folks? Lamar, you haven't gone first yet, so go right ahead, brother. Lamar?
Roughly every other day, I send out affirmations And one of the ones I sent out today says, lie once and your truths will always be questioned. And I find it interesting that this story comes from a source that's known as a big liar. And the last paragraph of this story says, paying for Americans wrongly detained by Iran will only make Americans less safe in the long run and provides more funding for the brutal Iranian regime. These were lessons we learned long ago, but that Joe Biden refuses to learn. Well, if we had another Democrat in office, they would have said that. This is a statement proven to be said. I wouldn't hear this if this was done on CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC. Only on Fox or Newsmax would, or some other right-wing show, would I hear this. So this sort of blew me up. As far as the hostage swap, I'm happy for that. As far as the $6 billion freezing of assets, I don't know what was the reasoning behind it. Now, we do have Iran's money. We do want Iran not to have a nuclear program. And as long as they are adhering to the program, which is to be verified by human eyes through the six-party system, meaning ourselves, I believe it's ourselves, Iran, Russia, England, France, and the United Nations, and I think there's someone else as well. But as long as there's the six parties who actually view all of the sites and they're in compliance, I have no problems with seeing them receive some of their money back. So I think you have to really be concerned as to where you get your information from. And this particular article comes from a fake news source or FA News. But as stated, I have no problem with them receiving their money back if it's based on the nuclear plan to keep us all safe. And as far as we swapping 5 for 5, that's great. At least we're not giving away, 3 for 1, or what we've been doing with Russia. That's my position.
Okay, thanks, Lamar. Kentucky guy.
Oh, why do you got to call on me next?
I don't know.
Okay, so so here's the thing. I don't think if we had a different president, like even a Democrat or Republican, I don't think this would have went the same way. This administration is the weakest administration I've ever seen, and they show it around the world. Our enemies know it, and that's why they take advantage of it. The $6 billion of frozen assets. Let's just keep printing money we don't have and sending it off to Ukraine, Iran, and these places. Let's just keep doing that, because our grandkids, they're not going to have to pay for that, right? Yeah, they're definitely going to have to pay for it one day. So the release of the hostages, of course, I want to see American hostages releases. However, if you have a strong leader in there, I think they could have done it without the swap of money. The Iran deal, their nuclear deal, is the worst deal I've ever seen in my life. It does not benefit us whatsoever. And like him or love him, President Trump was right in pulling us out of that in the Paris climate, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. So yeah, so once again, Sleepy Joe shows his weakness. There's my little 2 cents.
All right, thanks, brother. Angel?
I don't have a stance necessarily on this one. I'm still processing the last one, so I don't have anything on this one. I'm sorry.
Okay. Kim?
No, I don't have much to say on this one. I'm always suspicious first. Maybe it's a good quality, maybe it's a terrible quality I have, but I always think there's other agendas. It's not just being nice. Let's just release their money and their hostages for ours. I always think there's another agenda, so we'll see what that is.
Okay. Anything else on that before we move on? All right. I put a lot of information out on this last one because it's kind of a big deal. This is Constitution Day. And when I seen it on the calendar, I thought, Constitution Day, what's that? But we've obviously had them for a long time, and I just don't remember. Anyway, this article says Niger's military junta has authorized U.S. troops stationed in their country to resume patrols. And that's not the story I just mentioned. But anyway, Niger's military junta has authorized U.S. troops stationed in their country to resume patrols by drones and fighter bombers. Less than 2 months after coming to power in a coup that toppled a French-backed president, Niger's military junta has authorized U.S. troops stationed in their country to resume patrols by drones and fighter bombers. At the same time, Washington, which has 1,100 of the 6,500 troops it stations in Africa and Niger, is moving troops 920 kilometers north from the capital, Niamey, to Agadez. By placing these forces in Agadez, Washington aims to maintain control over a critical resource-rich area, even as mass protests in Niamey demand the removal of NATO imperialist powers troops from the country. Northern Niger contains a number of uranium and gold mines that play a critical role in the region's economy and in the global energy trade. Agadez also hosts a large UN refugee camp that the NATO powers are using to detain African refugees seeking to flee north to Europe via the Sahara Desert, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. The United States and French military presence in the area helps to block the refugees' flight northwards and to anchor a network stretching across Africa of NATO detention camps that block refugees from arriving in Europe. Now, this is one that's kind of, I don't know, it seems like it's kind of fuzzy about what the deal actually is. But when you take into consideration about the troops being put there, large UN refugee camp that the NATO powers are using to detain African refugees to flee north to Europe via the Sahara Desert. And it's all has something to do with the energy, and it has something to do with the global energy trade. So, how much of this is political and how much is economic, and I don't know, it just seems kind of like a fuzzy mess to me. So
I've got a quick question. What does this have to do with Constitution Day?
nothing. I got confused about the law,
Oh, okay.
which one I was going to.
All
Sorry
right.
about that. Yeah, I forgot about this story. I went to the was the last one, so.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
I know. A senior moment, brother. I have a lot of them. So what do you think about this one, Kentucky?
That's what I get for opening my mouth, right?
Yeah.
You know, I tell you, there's a part in this article that you read that frightens me, and that's NATO imperialist power troops.
Mm,
You know, anytime NATO and the UN and they're doing it, they have their own police or guards or whatever you want to call them. We need to watch out for that stuff like that, because a lot of times, many people, I used to be this way, you'd hear something like this happening and you're like, well, that'll never happen here in the good old USA, or that'll never happen in Canada or what have you. Yeah, look at Canada right now. I talk about them a lot on my podcast. Man, they've got a dictator for a prime minister. Let's just be honest about it.
yes,
That
we do.
that guy is horrible, and he needs to be gone. He should have been gone a long time ago. He's trying to be like his real daddy. But anyways, I won't get into that.
Exactly.
Anyways, so I think we ought to be very, very careful when it comes to something like this, just to be honest with you. And not just because we are the US and NATO's involved, but it can always come back to Washington. And I don't know why we haven't learned this lesson yet. We're not right now, we're not a superpower like we used to be. And we can't take care of the rest of the world like we used to. We just can't. We don't have the leadership in there to do that. We're on our way to do that again, but we're not there now. So I think maybe we ought to back off on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So there you go, sir.
All right. Kim?
Well, I was a bit confused about this article, so I started reading, of course, and just now what I'm seeing, what you just posted, I'm like, oh, okay, some of it makes sense now, because I didn't read any of this part. But what I was reading was that the Biden administration is searching for ways to keep the U.S. forces and assets in Nigeria, because what's going on is apparently it's a coup d'etat, and other nations are calling it what it is, and every other nation is supposed to follow suit, right? If it's a coup d'etat, you're supposed to you get out of there, because for obvious reasons nobody wants to support that. And the US is saying, well, we're going to call it something else. They're trying to pretty it up, right? They don't want to call it a coup d'etat. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not understanding this. Like, why not? If that's what it is and all the other nations are saying that, what's up with the US? Why are they trying to make it a prettier word? And now it makes a lot of sense now that I'm reading your article here, because it's always political and there's always a second agenda. And I'm looking at this with the energy, the gold mines, and I can't see the other one there that you had, but resource rich area. And it makes not so much more sense why the Biden administration wants to keep them there. All the other places are calling it a coup d'etat, because this, let's face it, this military is quite barbaric at times. And I have friends from not too far from there, and they tell horror stories, and maybe you guys know people too. And it just makes sense to me now reading your thing there, Steve, that why the administration wants to stay and keep their troops there, because it's resource rich. There's always an ulterior motive. There's always. When they should be taking the troops out, they're not, and there had to be a reason, and there it is. Uranium gold mines. Okay, there, I see it. Sorry.
Surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah.
Angel?
I don't really have anything on this one in particular.
Okay. Lamar?
Oh, I agree with Kim, but there's always an agenda to everything. And I agree with what Kentucky guy was saying in terms of, the U.S. sticking its nose where it shouldn't be. I find it interesting that in this article, we have both the UN and NATO saying African people stay on your continent, but we don't say, we don't have US and NATO saying it to those people south of the border of the US. And if there was, if we were to do that, there would be an uproar. But since this is happening to African people, we've got no voice. There's no voice. No one in the press is making this possible, other than I've never heard of this happening before. So I'll just say no voice. But clearly this is going on. And if it's a matter of gold, uranium, we're talking about, again, a part of the colonials taking resources that belong to somebody else. So this is, we're going to stop you from going from, and it says these are refugees. So we're going to keep you from leaving where you are, even though when we were refugees, we left where we were, we went to America and took over somebody else's property. But we're going to force you to stay where you are. And when you're leaving the Ukraine, we're going to force other countries to take your people and say, we have to. And we're going to bring you to the US. But if you're African, you have to stay in Africa. Or if you're in Haiti, you got to stay in Haiti. But as long as you're Cuban, come on down. This, to me, is just more BS, political BS.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay, kind of reminds you of what happened in Iraq. It does to me. In Iraq, everything was about the oil. And now here, everything is about the gold and uranium. It always goes to the money, doesn't it?
But also, yes, you're right. But think about it too, exactly what Lamar says. What happened in Iran, do you remember how many refugees in North America we brought over? We brought over like North Americans and Canadians. Do you remember? We were inundated, but now they're telling the Africans to stay there. They're not bringing them over to help them. They're not supplying I agree with what Lamar said there. Yeah.
All righty. Anything else on that one? Okay,
But
let's go to the next.
But Kim, it's interesting that, Kim, we'll go ahead and take their property, we'll take their land, we'll take their resources, but we won't take the people.
Right. Yep. And it's funny because hearing it, that's why people need to speak. That's why having voices like this, like on this podcast, it's important to hear these different things, because when you say it something happens to us. We're hoping something happens to us, right? And when you say it like that, it's like you have to take a step back and take stock and go, wow, wow. It's like nobody learns from history, and people are blind. Like the people are blind. We don't see it. We don't want to see it. I don't know what the problem is. We're just covered. And then you say statements like that, and it's like, it forces us to go, oh, wow, you're absolutely right. Again, they're doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
Again.
Yeah, but people see what they want to see. I'm a big believer in reading Matthew 1:23. And I find it hard that it tells you a person's name and then they turn around and call call Christ by a Spanish name. I don't understand that.
What?
Matthew 1:23 says, and she will have a son, and his name shall be Emmanuel. And now they call him Jesus.
Right.
That's not his name, it's Emmanuel.
Right. God with us.
Exactly. It means God with us. Jesus is not the name of Christ. But people would rather just believe the lie than say what the Bible says his real name is. And if you bring that up to people, at least when I bring it up to people, they're like, "Where'd you get that?" It's the very first book of the New Testament, and it's only the 23rd verse. So the question is, why doesn't your pastor tell you the truth? And my dad, who is a minister, when I brought that up to him, he backed off. So again, the question is, why doesn't your minister tell you the truth? So again, people want to look away from reality. Oh, I forgot. I'm not supposed to tell the truth about my family. Constitution Day.
Yeah, happy Constitution Day. I knew that story was in here. Okay. Did you know that 236 years ago, the United States Constitution was officially signed on September 17? That document set our nation on a course the world had never seen before. Constitution Day is the perfect opportunity for us to reflect on the wisdom of the document and celebrate the blessings of liberty. Here are 10 things you may not know about the Constitution. Number 1, at the time of the Constitution's signing, there were just 4 million people living in America. Now there are more than 334 million people. That means the American population was just 1.2% of the size that it is now. Now, before we go on to number 2, I want to talk about that particular one there for a moment. When the Constitution was signed, there was 4 million people living in America. Now we have 334 million people. Do you think that makes a difference? Do you think the Constitution is still relevant and it's still just as important for us as it was then, or should it be changed in some way? Now, we've had a lot of preambles over the years, and that's one thing, but there are people, as you folks know, nowadays, there are some people that say the Constitution needs to be done away with or totally changed, and it's just not the perfect thing for us to lead us and guide us nowadays. So what do you think about that?
I don't agree with the 4 million people. I honestly don't agree with that. You know why? Because I'm pretty certain that no Indigenous person was included on that survey. And they were there long before those 4 million Americans, I'm sure.
You're right. Good point. Good point. And are they counted now in the 334 million?
African people weren't counted.
Exactly. So that was probably whatever that I'm going to get myself in trouble by saying that. That 4 million people was probably more white than anything else.
Yeah. But do you think the numbers in itself makes a difference as far as being relevant?
I don't think so. I think it's changing. People want it changed because it's more about a me world now, and it's not about the population, the general population. It's what can I benefit from it, not what can our country benefit from.
Okay. What do you think, Kentucky guy?
I think that our forefathers were very smart, very intelligent, and a lot of things that are in our Constitution, it relates to right now, even though we're in a current world, no matter what our number is. And this is a very important document, and it was already changed once a long time ago, and that's when they added in I think it was 1874 when we borrowed money from England, and I won't get into all that, but anyways, I don't think we need to change anything. I think we need to leave it alone, because kind of like the our independence, it's a part of history, and it relates to right now. If you look at there and you do some reading and you really dig into the Constitution, some of the things that we've been going through the last 3 years, you can see where a lot of the laws have been broken.
Oh yeah, yeah. By
But
the people who put the law in place.
so so it's still relevant, right? If they're still breaking it, it's still relevant. So yeah, I say leave it alone.
Okay. What do you think, Angel?
Oh, I hate these topics. Oh,
Don't be shy. Tell us what you think. Seriously.
this was not made for me. I can tell you that. I mean, when it was developed, it wasn't for me, or my ancestors or anybody of that nature. It was for
White people.
For white people.
correct. It was for them. Do I think that there needs to be some changes? I mean, if we didn't change anything from way back then and just kept everything the same, we wouldn't be where we are. I mean, we would be, it would just be bad. So I think a lot of these documents should be changed with time. Especially here in Alabama, we still have slave legislation written into our in our documentation for our state. And it's ridiculous that we still have that in there. And they're still fighting to make those changes. These are things that should have been changed like forever ago, but it's still sitting there. We had one lady that was just recently, she was actually the first person to not get out of her seat on the bus. And she was like, as of a couple years back, still on probation from way back then, like, because just nobody cared. And so I think a lot of this needs to be changed for sure. But then again, it's like, to me, it pertains to me because I'm in this time, so it does, I guess, make it applicable to me. Was it built for me or made for me or with me in mind? No.
Well, I just want to jump in for 1 second. Some of those documents you were talking about, that's not the Constitution, though, because
no, but I'm just talking about documents.
Sorry.
Right. I'm just talking about documents altogether. Like when this country was built, those documents were not made for me, period.
But the Constitution, and I could be wrong, Angel, I'm just putting my 2 cents in here. The Constitution, okay, it was taken advantage of by more white people than anything, but the Constitution includes you. Even the 13th Amendment is like,
Right.
I'm not even, I don't know. Like that's what I'm saying. I can't even pretend to know these.
What I'm saying is like when this document was built, like when this document was first developed, was it developed with me in mind?
Okay, granted,
yes,
you're right. You're right. Okay, yes. So back in the 13th,
yes, there's been a few changes as the time has come, but the original document was not built for me per se.
That's a good point, Angel. I agree with you. At this particular time in America's history, it was signed by rich white men.
Yeah.
And for as long as they could, they kept it that way. They didn't want anybody else to be allowed to vote, but rich white men. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, you can look that up in any history book. So I understand what Angel is saying there.
I understand what she's saying, but in my ignorance, possibly just reading it over, and lots of things, if you don't take the time to actually study it, it could look pretty in disguise, right? Like skunks are beautiful, but so in just my reading it over quickly, the amendment or the Constitution, I'm like, okay, that's for everybody. But again, that could be my ignorance. But I do agree with you, Angel, when you're saying at the time, like that 4 million people that didn't take in people of color or indigenous people, so I do agree with you for that. Yes.
Yeah, and just to caveat off that, of course, back then, we were ignorant on some things, right? And the slavery and that. I mean, that's should have never happened. It's part of history, but it should never happen. But if you read the Constitution, just because your skin color, and I've always felt this way, just because your skin color may be different than mine, you're still a guy, you're still a woman, you're still a human. And if you read the Constitution, it talks about the freedom and rules that it gives to human beings. So maybe per se, of course, they didn't write that with you all in mind. Steve mentioned it. They wanted to stay in power, and they were ignorant. Let's just face it, they were, and they were wrong. But those rules still cover everybody
yes.
in the United States.
Yes. Now they do. Now I have that understanding, but I'm just saying then if then it applied to everyone, then why didn't it apply to me back then? Why is it applying?
Because they were ignorant, to be honest with you. They were. We were, and I think we've tried to make it up over the years, but you'll never be able to. Just it was a bad time in our history. It really was. Sad time.
Yeah.
It was a bad time, but I don't agree on the part that they were ignorant. I think they knew exactly what they were doing when they made it for rich white men. I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, I was just trying to be polite.
I know.
And don't forget, a 1,000 years prior to that, way back, like 5,000 years ago. Okay. Unfortunately, slavery's been a thing since the beginning of time, and the Indians were those slaves 1,000 years ago, right? Like, unfortunately, we have a dark history in this world.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we never won't have a dark history, because the human heart is wicked to its core.
I heard that.
And, there's nothing I can say to make anybody whose ancestry has gone through something mine hasn't. Sometimes we go through these parts where you just feel like, wow, like I don't even want to talk because I can't understand. Only being a woman, I can only understand this much, but I'm still a white woman. Right?
Lamar, what do you think about this?
The Constitution is a living document that has been the shining light on the hill for other countries. And if we let it be destroyed, then other countries will all. There were Africans that were not slaves. They're called the Moors. When you
Say
look
that again,
at
Lamar.
pictures of George Washington, you'll see him standing there with Moors. And just as Steve said, the Constitution was written for rich white people because it says that of a person. So this they were 3/5 of a person. They were counted as 3/5 of a person. So we know that the writers of the Constitution were outright racist because they devalued the slaves. That's in the Constitution. So we know where their head was. Now, it's a beautiful document that was flawed. And Angel has a perfect understanding as to how she's feeling and what she's thinking. I signed up to protect it. And a lot of my brothers and sisters did not make it. And I'm talking all service members. That's why we have Memorial Day. Yet and still, the document has made it possible for greedy, power-hungry, immoral, lying people to be in power. And I'm thinking of 3 people on the Constitution, well, 4 people on the Supreme Court who said that they would protect Roe versus Wade. And they went ahead and took that right away. And once the Alito letter came out, I was speaking with a Republican, and her statement was, well, they won't do it. I said, well, we already know they're going to do it because we read the Alito letter. My question to her was, where do you think they're going to stop? Now, if they're going to take away a woman's right to control her own body, what other rights are they going to take away? And my question to her was, do you think they will take away a woman's right to vote? And she said no. I said, why not? We're talking about men who just are taking away the right for you to control your own body. Why would they not take away your right to vote? And that's how the Constitution is written, for people to take away your rights. And for those that say it's not possible, well, Roe versus Wade is gone. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right, let's go to number 2. Jacob Shallis, a clerk for the Pennsylvania General Assembly, was paid to write down the dictated words of the Constitution. He was paid $30, which is about $986 in today's dollars. That's a pretty good day's pay, wasn't it? Not really anything. Not really anything there that I have a comment on. Anybody want to jump on that one for any reason? Okay. Number 3 is
good day's pay.
Yeah. Number 3, the U.S. Constitution contains 4,400 words, excluding signatures. It might seem like a lot, especially for one person to write by hand, but it's the shortest constitution of any major government in the world. It's about 17 pages, double spaced. I've never seen any of the constitutions of another country, so I don't know if that's true or not. Does anybody else know about how long the constitutions are of other countries? Do you know how long the Constitution is of Canada, Kim?
No, I don't.
Kentucky guy, I got a feeling you might know something about that.
Well, when it comes to other countries, there's there's not a lot of countries that have a constitution. I do know that.
Right.
I think that I read somewhere that the British and the UK Constitution is about as long as ours. And to be honest with you, Steve, that's about as far as when you get away from the U.S. Constitution, about as much as I know, sir.
Okay. Angel?
Mm, no, I don't know of any other ones that particularly have or their page count.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
Well, I just Googled something, and the only thing I found is it says that it's 200 pages, the Canadian Constitution,
Oh, okay.
paperback. I don't know what that is. So we'll just forget I even said that. It says paperback. I don't know.
Number 4, two of our most prominent founders, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, did not sign the document. In 1787, Adams was serving as an ambassador to Great Britain, and Jefferson was ambassador to France. I didn't know that until I saw this article. Is that important? I don't know if it is or not. Any comments on that one?
I mean, they're still considered forefathers, but I don't think it's really that important that they didn't sign it. It's not like they didn't. I'm sorry, Steve. It's not like they didn't sign it in protest, right? It just
Right.
they didn't sign it, right?
Okay, number 5, the Constitution was not displayed until 1924. For over a century, the Constitution was in the hands of the Department of State. Finally, in 1921, it was transferred to the Library of Congress. It was put on display from 1924 until 1954, when it was sent to the National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C. Now, to me, it's strange that it was not displayed until 1924. For over a century, it was in the hands of the Department of State. Now, call me a cynic if you want to, but there's a lot of time there for people to change things. Just off the record and behind the scenes. What do you think about that? Anybody else think that's a possibility?
Well, I mean, we can all do our theories here. That's a long time because
Yeah.
for 100 years, there was a lot of slavery going on in those times. And the Constitution had, things against slavery, but if it wasn't displayed, did people actually know that was in the Constitution?
Yeah.
Right? So hiding stuff we can go right back to our last conversation with their power and control over human beings. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. What do you think, Kentucky guy?
I think she said it all. I think she's spot on when it comes to something like that. I mean, there's not a whole lot to add.
Okay. Angel?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Lamar?
I'm in total agreement with Kim.
All right.
It's a long time to hide something.
And usually when people are hiding something, they have a reason, don't they? They want to keep something hidden.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at the next one. Number 6, our nation spent $5 million to protect the Constitution. In 2003, a project was undertaken to study and preserve several famed documents, including the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. The resulting work featured an anti-glare glass case, a titanium frame coated with gold, and technology aimed at maintaining the integrity of the pages. The cases contain inert argon gas and are kept at 67 degrees with a relative humidity of 40%. 2 small synthetic sapphire windows track metrics such as humidity and gas content, so archivists don't need to open up the case. Now, I can't even read that with a straight face. I mean, for over 100 years, they didn't even let anybody see it. Now, all of a sudden, they acting like it's the greatest treasure in the whole universe. I mean, is that a big switch too? Seems like to me that's a big, strong perspective, right?
It's
Anybody
ridiculous.
agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
depends on the paper they
powerful.
use.
It just seems mighty strange to me.
Mighty strange indeed.
Amongst other things. I
Yeah.
digress.
Tell us about those other things, Angel.
No, I'm just saying, like, I can't.
And I thought we'd get a lot of comments on that. That's, to
It's
me,
just,
that's just ridiculous. I mean, do they protect the ancient sacred text any better than that? Just all of a sudden they decide, wow, this must be an important document, pull it out of the closet and take care of it. Okay. I go to the next one. Benjamin Franklin was 81 when he signed the Constitution, and though his mind was in good shape, his body was not. His medical history indicates he has severe gout pain and a large bladder stone. When he entered the hall, he had to be carried by 4 prisoners from the Walnut Street jail in Philadelphia. According to records, Franklin needed assistance to even sign his name on the document, and he died 3 years later. And that's just interesting trivia, I guess. They had to carry him in by 4 prisoners from the Walnut Street jail. I mean, that's just interesting. Any comments on that one?
Seems like it's the same as we do today. We keep people in office until they're ancient or giving them life terms. And
Yep.
Yeah, there needs to be term limits. We've spoken about this before, but we need term limits like now.
absolutely. Yes. Yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think those prisoners were from England, were they not? American, they were American prisoners of war in England. Who knows?
I'm not sure.
There's documents on those prisoners somewhere, I remember.
Oh, really? Okay.
but who knows?
I wonder why his signature was all that important if they had to go to such measures to get it. Or was it him, Franklin himself, that thought he was that important and they couldn't do it without? I don't know.
Hmm.
They say truth is stranger than fiction.
He was an
right?
important man at the time.
Evidently.
Yeah.
All right. Number 8, the word democracy does not appear in the Constitution. The Constitution created a republic, not a democracy.
Hmm.
Famously, when Franklin was approached after a convention meeting and asked what the new government would look like, he replied, "A republic if you can keep it." Now, those words really resonate with me. A republic if you can keep it. And that puts my mind back to January the 6th, 2021, when we almost lost it. So does anybody else think of it in that way? Does that make you think of January the 6th? Anybody?
I think that rings true.
Do you think we come
I think
close
it
to
rings true. Every generation has to protect. I think it rings true. Every generation has to step up and protect the republic. But then again, that's why I feel that everybody should step up and be part of the military, because it doesn't just rest on the 1% that volunteers. Everybody needs to step up because it benefits all of us. And if we all benefit, then we should all take part in protecting the rights of everybody. So we all have skin in the game.
Hmm.
Okay. Kentucky guy, what do you think about that?
Well, I have a different kind of a take on this, because we're actually, the United States of America isn't a republic anymore. Hasn't been for many years. We're actually a corporation under the treaty that we signed with the king once we went broke after the war. You guys will have to look up the dates. I'm been up all day, so I'm kind of out of it. But anyways, yeah. So we have, but you're right. We need to defend our country. We need to. It's up to each generation. But yeah, we haven't been an actual republic in a long time, unfortunately.
What does that actually mean, a republic? I mean, what exactly does that entail?
Justice.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Justice. Also, before when we became a corporation, that's where you had income taxes being charged, and you got taxed for your land and all that good stuff. And I know we talked a lot about slavery on this call and how horrible it is, but if you think about it, we're really all right now, and I'm not diminishing the history or anything, but we're all kind of slaves economically right now. You go out and you work every day. They take money out of your check for what? We pay these taxes for what? It used to not be that way in the actual United States of America Republic. So, and they've got us hemmed in.
Right.
Yeah. And you have to have permission if you want to leave the country. Anything you build, you have to have permission and a permit that costs money. Anytime you spend money, you have to pay tax again on money that has already been taxed when you make the money. Oh yeah, a lot of people feel like you're slavery in a way. Any more comments on that one?
I'm sorry, that was the Act of 1871. You guys want to go follow
Okay,
up what I was talking about?
good deal. Okay, let's look at number 9 here. A 55-year gap separated the oldest from youngest signer. Benjamin Franklin was the oldest at 81. The youngest was just 26. Jonathan Dayton of New Jersey. Dayton would go on to serve as the third Speaker of the House. But I suppose he didn't have to be carried in on a stretcher with 4 prisoners, you know?
No.
Any comments on that one? Okay, and number 10.
Hopefully he was smarter.
Hey, what, Lamar?
No, I was going to say, hopefully he's smarter than our current member of the House, Speaker of the House.
Possibly. Okay, number 10. Only 2 presidents signed the Constitution. Although many future presidents were living and politically active in 1787, only 2 participated in the Constitutional Convention, George Washington and James Madison. Their signatures on the Constitution are the only signatures of U.S. presidents. So there are 10 things that you may or may not have known about the Constitution. Do you feel smarter now? Oh, well, I don't feel any smarter. Kim, you're going to have to give us some
I'm going to write a
Canadian
thesis.
articles to talk about sometimes.
Sorry, Lamar, what was that?
I'm going to have to write a thesis on this and become a doctor.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And what was that question? What did you say, Steve? I have to give you what?
Some Canadian news to talk sometimes. We always got the U.S.
Well,
of the world news.
sometimes it's a little bit difficult because we've been we have a communist prime minister, so our news has been censored. We're not allowed to see a lot of news now, so
Really?
it's really hard. Yeah, I'm huge into research. I love researching stuff, and it's so hard for me now to find stuff. Yeah.
Well, is your internet still open? Can you still get all the news that way?
Well, you can still get on and use internet, but it's just censored. We don't have a lot of stuff. We got a communist prime minister. You think Biden's bad? You should come to this country. Never in the history of this country, and we're a young country, never in the history has there been such corruption and such hatred and division from our leader. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that's true all over the world. Just watching the news, there's protesting in every country that they show, or something horrible is going on.
Wow. We had one of the most peaceful protests in history that the entire world is taking notice of. And our prime minister had the Emergency Act
Okay.
with lies upon lies upon lies upon lies.
Imagine a politician lying. I just can't
Imagine.
Yeah, I thought it was a shame how they treated those truckers.
Excuse me.
That was crazy.
Everything you hear on the news
Kim,
nowadays.
who's the prime minister for?
Justin Trudeau.
Oh, he is
His-
still the prime minister. Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand why he was voted in twice, and it's horrifying. And if he gets voted in again, we're leaving the country.
You don't think that they might have had a little bit of maybe a election fraud there, do you?
Yeah, you don't say. Yeah, no, it's if people only knew.
He's just he wants to be his dad, Castro.
He doesn't care anything about the country. He just cares about keeping the power.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just terrible. He if you're unvaccinated, he outright,
Yeah.
basically, in other words, and I'm not, you could say, oh, you could take it that way. He's basically said unvaccinated people should all be killed.
Wow.
They have no rights. They can't, they should be, so you can Google some of the words, like his own words, but it's, yeah, basically he told neighbors to rat out your neighbor. If you see your neighbor talking to another neighbor outside of their home, you need to call us. And they gave a number to call so neighbors could rat out neighbors. Yeah, it was just ridiculous. Because those people is what we're dubbed. Because, yeah, those people. I can go on for hours, but it's 11 o'clock, so I won't.
Those people cause all the problems, don't they?
Oh, he said a lot of bad things. You would be surprised that a leader of a country would say something like that about his people.
Oh, I watched him in Parliament call the group that was against him, questioning him, anti-Semitic. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe that because most of those were part of that. When Hitler and all that. I mean, this guy, he never surprises me.
Yeah. No. Sad.
Folks, we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and we all learned. Famously constitutionally informed now. So I wanted to give everybody a chance to put in the plug for what you got going on your book, your website, your podcast, or whatever. So, Kim, you want to go first on that?
Well, thank you. Last week I plugged in This Is Your City. I do a lot of public speaking. I do podcasts for This Is Your City. I write for different news articles. But tonight I want to plug it's Developing Your Inner Excellence. I'm going to be graduating school soon, where I am a personal development coach, Christian counselor, and also going through my chaplaincy. So Developing Your Inner Excellence. I am a personal development coach and working towards my Christian counseling.
Okay. Angel?
I don't really have anything that I want to plug in just yet. Forensic PI. So for those of you that do watch TV One's Fatal Attraction, my next episode does come on TV One this October. So
What do you mean?
That.
What do you mean? Say that again. Your episode,
A forensic expert on the show. So as they're kind of doing like the dramatics, like the reenactment, I'm actually on there and I give the forensic opinion of the case that they're talking about.
So cool. That is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah, keep us informed on that when that comes on, Angel. I want to check that out.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Kentucky Guy.
Okay, so I host the Red Pill Current News podcast. We drop a couple episodes a week. I also co-host Against the Mat Wrestling podcast with Donnie Cage. That's kind of my relief podcast. We just, try to blow off some steam. The Red Pill is more, it's political, about current events and things of that nature. And also, you can catch me on social media all over. We do videos and we do skits and we talk about the news and we try to have a little fun in this crazy, beautiful country of ours, even though it's in bad shape. So.
All right. Lamar, what you got going on, brother?
I am the founder. I am the founder of a nonprofit called tutorsforyou.org, and we provide online tutoring for $5 an hour, supporting children and adults worldwide. We are looking for volunteers, and that our goal, our concept is to help families that are outpriced by the current pricing of tutoring. Whereas currently you're paying $30 to $300. Well, with us, you only pay $5 for a class, and all of our tutors are experienced teachers from around the world. And you can find us online at tutorsforyou.org. tutorsforyou.org.
All right. Good deal.
Operator
That's awesome.
standing by.
All right. In case you don't know, I have another podcast called Friday Night Conversations. It's on every Friday night, and it's a kind of a one-on-one interview thing. I've had Angel on there. I've had Lamar on there. I want to have Kentucky guy on there soon when we can get him together. And Kim, it's been a couple of years since I interviewed you, so maybe we can get you on there too soon. I'm booked up through November, so it might be a little bit, but we'll get you in if you're interested. Kentucky guy, I want you on there. And I'm still promoting my most recent book, The Dark Truth, a chilling story of Summer Wells' disappearance. So that's about a little 5-year-old girl. Well, she's 5 years old 2 years ago. And she just suddenly disappeared from a little rural neighborhood in East Tennessee, and nobody knows where she is, if she's dead or alive. And she comes from a very, let's say, interesting family. Right, Angel? I know you know that.
Right. Yes. Very interesting family.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're up to, folks. And I want to thank everybody on panel tonight for being here once again. And thanks for everybody that's tuning in, and hope you always enjoy the night crew. And
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
oh, yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Good
Have a
night,
good
everybody. Great to see you all again. Nice to see you, Angel.
Hi, nice to see you too, Kim. Bye-bye.
Good night.
night, everybody.
Good night.
See everybody later.